late?
Too late?
Okay.
Hey YouTube, y'all know what we do when we have these girls parties. Girls just want to have fun. So we're just going to go with the flow tonight. Welcome YouTubers, welcome Cryptonairz, welcome future and present millionaires, future degens, wannabe degens. Just welcome, welcome all of you artists, collectors, NFT fanatics, of which there are definitely 3 on your screen right now. We are so happy to be here and so happy to have our very, very special guest. And I want to say this right. It is pronounced Mido, right?
Mido.
Ah! Okay. No, it is not. So y'all, it is Mido. Welcome Mido to the show. And we have the privilege of doxing her for the very first time. So yes, remember that beautiful face. Shout out to Sean Webster in the chat. We are going to talk to you guys all about her amazing project. If you look at the background behind me, this is my girls writing things NFT that I minted before the project sold out. So excited. Notice the blue hair. I was so happy to get her. That was totally like a random for chance, but I was like, this is
No way.
absolutely so perfect. It's me. Yes.
I
So
love
she's
that.
she's gonna tell us all about her project. She's gonna tell us all about NFTs, and if you are interested in maybe one day aspiring to do your own, she's gonna give us some tips, some good alpha on like what should you do, and hopefully on like what the trends are in the space right now. So we're going to have all of those wonderful conversations. I'm just going to share a little bit of Mido's bio with you. She's a digital artist and a writer that's based in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Shout out Colorado. Where she lives, and she lives there with her husband and 2 chihuahuas, I have just learned. She's a lifelong artist and learner, and she spent the past 4 years working as a front-end developer. So that's really interesting. She's a tutor, a teaching assistant at a women's coding boot camp, and she is a bud tender in the medical marijuana industry in Colorado. Yay! Did you bring us any? She is
It's
currently
all gone.
pursuing She's currently pursuing art full time as the artist and founder of this project, Girls Writing Things NFT collection. And I'm going to put her Twitter page on the screen. Make sure that you go and follow her like right this very minute. And make sure that you can take a look at her project. Of course, we're going to share her webpage, but let's just get into some of these questions for you. Um, what was your earliest memory or your earliest connection to art that you can remember? And how do you connect that with this particular project of yours right now? Like kind of bring us 360.
Yeah. I've always been drawing. It's just something that like we do in my family. Like all of my cousins are kind of like anime nerds and stuff like that. So they were always drawing and that was kind of like a good way to keep me busy as a child. um, but actually like my clearest memory of like the moment that I realized I wanted to be an artist was in the second grade. I had a dream about this like beautifully rendered wolf in graphite. Like I could see every fur and like the glisten of its nose and like the, moisture in its like just so perfectly rendered. And I woke up the next day, I was like, I'm gonna draw that wolf like right now, go to school, I like bust out my notebook and my pencil, and I draw like a triangle with like a dot for a nose and a dot for eyes. And I was like so frustrated. It was like flabbergasted. Like, how could I have this image in my head and I can't draw it on a piece of paper? And that kind of started this like lifelong obsession for me to be able to represent things that are in my imagination or that I find interesting in the real world on a piece of paper with pencils and pens and markers, and that those mediums expanded, but it really began with that dream.
Yeah. So you've been a woman that runs with wolves for a long time.
Yes.
And yes, I'm making a reference to the book. If you don't know what it is, go look it up. Really, really worth the read. And as you were envisioning your artistry and dreaming about that even from a young child, how do you feel like it led you to from because you are in the tech industry, obviously, like
Yes.
from which is totally what we would consider like not the creative side of the brain. How did you make the stretch from doing that and then also finding the outlet for your creativity?
Yeah. It was a move of necessity, right?
I hear you.
Um, I I would have rather have just been an artist full time, but yeah, I guess, like, my story is a little weird, like, I didn't have parents that were like, "Don't be an artist, you won't be able to eat." They were just kinda like, "Maybe you should get, like, a minor in business or something," and I
Uh,
was like, "Nah, I'm just gonna do art." And I think they just understood that I'm a very stubborn person. It wasn't, like, worth the breath space to argue that. And so I did. I went to art school for about a year, couldn't quite stay there, life circumstances had me out, worked and worked and worked, went back to college and graduated as a writing major, which is just, even worse than artistry as far as money goes.
I hear
Uh,
you.
but yeah, out of college, the medical marijuana industry in Colorado was pretty much thriving when I graduated, and you could earn like $15 an hour trimming weed. And I was like, that's a great job. I'll just do that. I'll come home, I'll make art.
Sounds good to me.
It was beautiful. But then it's kind of like a can of worms got opened up when we like legalized marijuana. And I don't regret the decision at all, right? It was just like there were so many things that nobody expected to happen that did happen. Housing prices like skyrocketed. Everybody wanted to live in Denver all of a sudden. Everybody wanted to work in the marijuana industry. So even though I had gained a lot of experience, my wages plummeted.
Wow.
And I went from being able to sustain myself to not being able to sustain myself without a second job. So yeah. So yeah, I was just kind of doing that, like, working these two jobs, trying to like get art in where I could. And then I had like a health crisis and sort of realized like I need a job that like if I can't stand up or if like something happens, like I have insurance and like I don't need to be that physically present, right? Like a job that I could, earn money
Right.
and in any circumstance. And I was also just like exhausted. And just like going through it and I was like I am so exhausted all the time I can't even be creative, so I need a job that like provides for my life and allows me to like be happy when I come home. And
I
so
feel you.
yeah, so I went into development and it's not that different than creative like industries, right? Like at least front end development, right? Like when you're designing a web page or like creating the code for a web page, it's a lot like writing. You're writing a sentence and it's creating a visual like display. And that's actually really exciting for my creative side to be like, I wrote 3 lines of code and now I have a pink beautiful web page. So
So you were able to kind of bridge the gap there with the creativity that you could bring being a front end developer, which is awesome. Did that happen like pre-pandemic or during?
that was pre-pandemic, yeah. I had been a developer for about 2 years when the pandemic hit.
And do you feel like, since we're on the subject, like did the pandemic bring you any new revelations? Were you were already working from home? Did you feel more or less creative? Was isolation an issue for you?
I'm an introvert, so no, I really enjoyed the first few months of the pandemic,
I
as
feel
terrible as
you.
it is.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
was like, "Oh, I don't have to make excuses for not going out." I just don't have to go out. Um, to make light of it, it was a bad time, but I try to see the silver lining in everything. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I was furloughed for about 3 or 4 months during that time. And I got to like wake up every day and just like make a cup of coffee, like take an anatomy doll or like set up a still life and just like draw and study and practice. And I kind of realized during that time, like, this is like who I am as a person. And when I'm doing this, like, I'm not wasting my life. Like, I don't feel like I'm clocking in to like grind away 8 hours to like eat and have a roof to sleep under.
Absolutely, yeah. Did
Yeah. And
as a creative during that time frame, it seems like a lot of people had the energy to self-reflect, which
yes.
just they previously just didn't have because they were
Mhm.
trading time for money. And it literally changed the trajectory of their lives. Do you feel like that was something that happened for you and put you on the path to the Girls Writing with Things project?
It definitely did. Yeah. Like after those 3 months, I was like, I need to figure out how to make this a reality, right? Like this needs to be my daily life. And so I did. I started like really researching and looking into digital artists that were self-sustaining, whether it was through a Patreon account or coffee, whether it was through commission work or YouTube's. And so I really started to like explore different digital art markets, including I did like a brief stint trying to become like a furry artist because like furries are really rich or something. Like they, they got a lot of money.
Right?
um, and I wasn't doing that great there because I just don't have that style. It's not like really my passion, so I think that kind of like showed through in my art. And a friend of mine during that time was like, "Hey, like, the furry art is like an avenue, but have you looked at NFTs?" And I was like, "What the fuck? Like, what does that mean?" I spent like 2 hours just like he's another developer, just like vehemently arguing with him. I was definitely like on the why can't I just right click and save this like path.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. So you did not start on the crypto path first. You came like directly in to NFTs from an artist standpoint. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can see where you would be. Right click save.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I've met enough blockchain developers throughout like my development work that I kind of understood it, but it just seemed like a solution that didn't have a problem for it to
Mhm.
solve, right? Like people would explain like the blockchain and hashes, and I'd be like, I don't really understand what you're saying, and I don't know what the use case is.
Right. Got you.
But with like NFTs, it made sense to me because I'd been like studying these digital artists for so long, and they do a lot of work for free, right? Like they are constantly producing to put onto Instagram and to Twitter and to like create videos, and they're not getting paid for that work because there is no ownership model around digital art. Like you might take a commission and create like a custom piece for somebody, but even that, like you don't make a lot of money. You might charge like $150 for like a portrait commission and spend like 3 days doing it. And so I don't know, like just like looking into NFTs and seeing that like they store like provenance on the blockchain and they allow like somebody to claim ownership of an image, right? Like it was like so groundbreaking. Like it was just like blowing my mind when I learned that. I was like, this is incredible. Like this is like how artists can liberate themselves finally and instead of just like no more starving artists, right? Like let's
Right.
have a world where like people get paid for their labor. So I hopped right in.
That is the most exciting part of this space for me is that it's like a time for creatives, a time such as we haven't seen the likes of probably since Renaissance. In terms of being artists being appreciated, I always say that I love the women-led projects because I understand very clearly that it's the feminine energy on the planet that is finally, rising up to take its rightful place, that energy of creativity and receiving. And it's a powerful thing. So I'm taking it that your friend who recommended this is still your friend.
Yes.
And Allie, feel free to like jump in with any questions you have. Like there's no kind of set program that we have here that's like rigid or whatever. But just like I said, just having fun hanging out. I do want to ask, we're gonna like look at I'm gonna show the audience your work actually so they know that what we're referring to. You have that pulled up, Al?
I do, yeah. So let's just head over to OpenSea. All right. Okay, guys, got it up.
All right. I'm
All right.
going to share that. There it is.
Oh, here we go. Here are some of the pieces. I'm going to try to find my favorite trait, which is the bomb, the books, not bombs. That is my favorite. I love that. Let's see if I can find one. I might have to go and search
But
the
just
other
looking
traits.
at your style there, Mido, with it for me, at least for me, it's definitely we see the pinup girl look.
Yes.
But I also see, to me, it feels like Art Deco is in there as well. I just absolutely love these images. What prompted this idea of girls writing things? Because they are all writing something.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked, and I'm glad that the pinup inspiration reads through. Art Deco is definitely like it's a very inspirational like period of art for me too. So excuse me. Pinup girls. I wanted to like I don't know, the generative art process was like so exciting to me. The idea that like there's this new method of creating art that like we haven't had before really just like blew my mind and I wanted to hop right in. And I had been looking around the space and most of what I saw was just like portraits, right? Which is great. Like people love portraits because you can relate
Yeah.
to them easily. But I wanted to see if you could create like a full bodied figure as well. And I was also like, when I first hopped in, like there were some female-led projects. There was like Sad Girls, there was Nyla's Long Neckies, like a couple of successes like that. But there wasn't really there's a lot of like female characters and a lot of times like there's just kind of this weird like male gazy sort of look. Like they're like leaning over with their bosoms like
Yeah.
dangling,
Yep.
Right.
kind of.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know why, but I just like I wanted to create something that was like a woman being sexy, but also powerful and in her own power. And I wanted it to come from like the gaze of a feminine gaze instead of a masculine gaze. And so I started looking into pinups, and I drew a couple actually from references, and a lot of them, like the poses, were just like really off for me. Like there was one, Marilyn Monroe's, I think, like debut centerfold, and like when you start to like draw it or like just really look into it, you get this feeling that there's like a man behind the camera telling her how to like shift her body and do that kind of thing. And something about it just felt like sad to me.
Right.
But then I also, I discovered like a bunch of other pinups more from like the 20s and the 30s that were like so fun, right? Like it was like a woman doing a thing. There happens to be like a sexy accident and like you and her like having a laugh about it, right?
Right.
And I loved that energy because y- like I think that there's like a weird like sexism is like so complicated and there's so many like tentacles to that beast. And one of them really happens to be around like women's like sexuality and sexual prowess and like appeal where like there's like a real like we slut shame and we don't like it when women are too sexy on Twitter,
Right.
like this whole dear Brian thing happening today, where a guy just had to go out of his way to tell women to not wear like low cut tops for whatever reason. And so I just feel like it's important that we remember that like women are human beings and we do have sexual desires and we do want to have sex and we want to have good sex and that's okay. Like that's
For
natural and
sure.
normal.
Absolutely. And if you say otherwise, then you lying. I just
Yeah.
absolutely love, again, this. You mentioned the male gaze. Um, and our bodies, obviously throughout history and in almost every culture, women's bodies and who has control over them has been at issue probably since the beginning of time. So to have a project that sees that and wants to take um, empowerment or bring empowerment into um, the equation where we're reclaiming our sexuality, reclaiming
Yeah,
our bodies and how we want to be seen and how we want to be viewed, and that whole myth about it's not okay if you're a woman who likes sex. um that is beautiful. It's absolutely amazing.
thank you, Cory. I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, and like kind of the other half of that, right, is that we don't talk about women's reproductive health because it gets like kind of pulled into that weird vortex of like women shouldn't be sexual at all.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and
The
that's
Virgin Mary stereotype.
exactly
Yeah.
the pious, pure woman.
All of that.
um, so that's why, like we also decided that we wanted to donate to the Fistula Foundation, which is it's a charity organization that helps women recover from birth-related injuries by getting life-changing surgeries. And these are women in like remote and poor areas of Africa and Asia, who, they just like the only reason that they're suffering is that they just don't have access to that care. And so I don't know. It was hard to market. It was really like hard to like
Mhm.
be like, hey guys, like care about this issue, because we don't want to talk about
Right.
that part of women, but it's so important, and it's like powerful. It's creative. It's how we continue the human race. So
That and just the value that we place again on women's bodies. And again, you can trace
I
this
actually
back
have this
to
pulled up.
so much. Thanks, dear Allie. That's Fistula. You
Sure.
guys go check it out. So much shame being heaped upon us, or seeing women as less valuable, girls as somehow less valuable than boy babies. So it feeds into so many things. And even here in America, as a woman of color, if you look at the statistics for uh, birth mortality rates, it's way higher, among people of color and marginalized communities, even when they have the same economic status. So I'm very, very appreciative that you're drawing attention to this, because it's important that we value each other, and that we, no matter what our sex happens to be, our sexual preference, our skin tone. I love too that you used zombies and orcs. And tell me about the choice to do that.
yeah, so one of the things, pinup art is a little problematic, right? There are times when it's great and there are times when it's not. And when it comes to pinup art, like there is not a lot of representation and diversity.
Yeah.
You have like a few figures like Josephine Baker and Anna Wong who kind of like break out as like, these like sexy idols, but they're like very few and far between. And I know as like an Asian woman, like I don't see myself in most pinup art, even though I like it. And so I kind of wanted to move I wanted to move forward in a way that like using exclusion to include, like nobody is a demon lady and nobody is a zombie. So we
Right.
can all like relate to that, right?
Yeah.
And I try to like include like different faces with like different like facial features, because I think that sometimes we get really caught up in discussions about like beauty standards with like just
Yes.
color, but it's also like facial features too. So yeah, that was the decision there. We can all be demon ladies and cat ladies together.
Yeah, I got a zombie. I love her. Absolutely. Big Walking Dead fan. So yes, she was absolutely perfect for me. S- Just, going back to like your art and your inspiration and your creative process, when your friend had that discussion with you, at what point in time did the wheel start turning? Like, when did you start to get your concept and decide, I'm going to go ahead out there, sounding like you really didn't know anything about NFTs and you didn't enter in through crypto. Like, what was the turning point?
It was really the provenance aspect, right? So, if you're a digital artist and you're posting your art out there, there's a lot of things like there's a lot of tricks and tips that they use to like protect themselves from copyright infringement. And even doing that, they usually aren't, right? Like somebody will like right click and save your picture and use it somewhere. And they're not maybe necessarily trying to be malicious about it. Like it's just the culture that we live in. If I want a picture of like an elf lady for my D&D campaign, I'm just gonna like Google it and use it. Um, but that's like one thing, and another thing is plagiarism. And so if you're a digital artist, like you do things like you have a full-sized image and you crop it and you only show like the cropped version on social media so that like if it comes time to prove who made that image, you can like show the full-sized image. Or you save like replay videos of you actually drawing the thing or sketches and things like that. It's like you have to put like this consideration of theft into your artistic process. Like you need to be documenting, you need to be considering like how much you show and how much you don't show. And so, and even if you put your like signature on a piece of art, there's Photoshop, like people can get rid of that.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like I said, I had met blockchain developers before. They had like kind of explained like the hashes and stuff, but like the finance stuff like did not make sense to me. Like money just doesn't make sense to me. Like I understand I need to make it and I need to spend it to like get certain things. But like
I hear you.
when Bitcoin was being explained to me, I was just like, oh, okay, like, but what's the point? And then so like when Ethereum, like somebody explained Ethereum to me, it was kind of like it's like you're creating a signature basically, and that signature is tied to a wallet that you own and that you can show people that you own, and like anybody can see like how that signature gets moved around. And I was like, okay, so it's almost like real life art collecting, but actually more transparent and reliable, because you're not relying on like a family of an artist to like catalog all the art that artist made and using that, this like paper, this list that they wrote out to like verify authenticity.
Right.
So, that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. The other light bulb moment for me was my developer for the project was kind of telling me like, wouldn't it be so cool if you could mint an NFT, like, when you get the vaccine or something,
Yeah.
and instead of like carrying around a card or, like our school records, like the way that like if you go to college or if you go to like high school or whatever, you have to give a school like your vaccine record. And who keeps the vaccine record? I don't know. Like I've always had
Right.
to like call my elementary school and be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
do you still have
Still
this
have
thing?"
that?
Yeah. And so he's like, "What if you could just like mint that as an NFT and then you get to own it, and if your school goes out of business or if a hospital goes out of business, like it doesn't matter. You still have it." And that's really when the gears started turning for me, and I started realizing that like NFTs are like Ethereum kind of like gives the world like a new way of like managing identity and managing ownership as well. It's not just, money that gets traded back and forth.
Believe it or not, right? Because we see the frenzy and the FOMO that's out there, and the NFT space is absolutely the wild, wild, wild west. If crypto was wow wow, it's triple times in NFTs right now because there's so much craziness going on out there. Which begs the question: when you started, I'm sure it was also a bit crazy as well. Um, what tips would you give to women who are looking to start, or anybody? We're not being biased, who would like to start an NFT project?
Oh boy.
Easy question.
Yeah. So right now we're in a bit of a bull market, and so it just seems like there's successes everywhere. Like everybody's selling out. Like who are these people that came out of nowhere? Like I don't know. I didn't see their Twitter account like more than a month ago. But they're selling out, and I guess like I just want to caution like NFT creators that like there are bear markets also. And
Mm.
so, you know, when I released my collection and when Rebel Society released and when like Women Rise, Divine, like all these amazing collections released, we were in a bit of a bear market. Like there wasn't a lot of people buying NFTs, and it took like perseverance and it took like just determination and stubbornness to say like, no, this collection is going to sell out. Like you guys aren't getting rid of me.
Right.
Um, and you know, like, so just like hope for the best and plan for the worst, but also realize that like when people buy these collections, right, like whether you represent it that way, whether like whatever you put on your website, you could say very loudly, this is just art for art's sake. That is not how people are going to look at it when they buy it. They are going to buy it expecting it to be an investment that like
Mm,
grows their capital. And
right.
so, you know, like I think like that was like really jarring for me. It was like like I don't like being I like if somebody's gonna like put this money into me, expecting it to grow, like
Hmm.
I am going to have to see that through. And I guess like I just want like creators to consider that like you're not just getting like a big, you know, cash payout that you can just walk out the door for. Like you're now responsible for a lot of different people's like economic like wellness,
Yeah.
right?
No
Um
pressure. No pressure at all.
yeah, it's yeah, no pressure. Like
Mhm.
somebody will buy 50 of your items and you know, like it's hard not to feel attached. Like, hey, I
Mhm.
need to like help this person out. So that's something that I would just like really caution people to consider. Like it's not gonna be it's a long-term investment. Like you need to be ready to be in this space for a while and continuing to build and continuing to like do X, Y, and Z. Like it doesn't just end with sellout.
Absolutely. Let's speak about the buzzword community. You know, how is that, building community for you in terms of your best and worst experiences?
I would say that my best experiences have really been when I just gave up on trying to market because I'm not a marketer. I just started being myself in the space and talking to other artists and other creators that I just like related to. Um, and I started to build communities there, right? Like I have a fabulous community in the women in NFT space with like Lori Grace and Chell's Vibe and, you know, Coco. I think she was on this show too. And so, like, that's been amazing. It's been incredible. And like, I would recommend everybody go out there and like build a community before you even try to sell anything because after sellout, I think is when I started to like notice more negative aspects of community.
Mhm.
Like everybody, uh, people treat you differently when they think you're rich. And like the funny example is that like guys keep like sliding into my DMs like, hey,
Seriously?
yeah, like I guess they're looking for like a sugar mama, but I'm like a Splenda mama. Like there's no real sugar here.
Want to date me? Let me see your bank account. Oh, come on. Yeah, I never imagined that as being an unintended consequence of success, but I suppose it is. Not to mention you're absolutely beautiful, so why wouldn't they? Um, yeah, that's crazy. That whole thing that I've seen of people, wind moon, what's the floor? Was that your experience as well?
It was. And there was like an expectation of this project to go like times 1,000 in a week.
Right.
And it's like you know, like I've been very careful about like what I promise on my website, what I promise in the Discord. I don't promise things I don't have. And so it was kind of like why do you think that this is going to moon overnight? Right?
Right,
Like,
right.
and also it requires like the projects that do well, right? The projects that do grow in value, they don't necessarily grow in value for because of the team. They grow in value because of that community. Like that community is out there saying like, "Hey, have you checked out like my cool NFT? Like we're all about this. Come to our Discord, hang out." And that's the case with like Bored Apes and CryptoPunks is that you have these kind of influencers in the space now that started out just being like evangelists for their favorite NFT project. Um, and I think that like there's been some of that like history lost or something. Like people are just really into that like quick flip.
Yeah.
And I'm not super into it because for me that feels very much like a Ponzi scheme type of like hot potato game. Like I just want this project to go up so I can sell out of it and be on my way. And like no, like stay, like build something, right? Like I don't know what you're gonna build. Like maybe you're just gonna build like a really fun group chat with like other people in that community. But like that's I don't know. I'm like rambling.
Not at all. Not at all. That's like
You've made
really,
really good points.
yeah, absolutely.
I do have
Yeah.
I have a few questions. I like to ask this of all of the guests that we do have come through the show, especially female guests. As women, we're natural caregiver or caretakers, I should say, and community builders. It's just something about a woman. It's what we excel in. Um, Not only do you have this project, but you are a Twitter Spaces machine. You are on so many spaces, and you're not even always promoting yourself. You're on educational spaces, the women in NFT spaces, where you're sharing other projects, trying to build community. You're doing all of these things. And by the way, congratulations on leaving your full time job because that's really exciting. Um, but how do you manage all of these things and still find time to look after yourself?
Oh, the honest answer is that I don't. Like I
Yeah.
really I really need to work on balance. I do. And
Don't we
it's
all?
hard. Yeah. It's hard, especially like, like you mentioned, like when you have a tendency for like caregiving and nurturing, like there's this trap, this like very easy like slope to slide down where you're taking care of everybody but not yourself. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer.
It's actually the
Um,
perfect answer because so many of us, including myself, especially myself recently, we struggle with the same thing, finding that balance. It's a really difficult place to find yourself because you want to please and help everyone else out, but then you're standing there like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, I need to do this for myself, or I need to pay some bills. I need to spend time with my family. And before you know it, it's midnight, 1 a.m., and you're just finishing up. And
Or you're
yeah,
still in
it's,
Twitter Spaces. What are you talking about? Finishing up.
yeah, this is
mm,
true.
yeah.
Another question I had, I noticed that um, when it comes to men in business and even in NFTs, oftentimes, yeah, sure, they can be competitive, but far less competitive than women. And if there isn't enough room at the table, they'll just pull up more seats. Women, they're not always like that. And I think sometimes we struggle with pulling up more seats or just making a table of our own. So, how can we continue to empower each other in this space and share what we're building here with other women?
Yeah, I think what you're saying really speaks to like uh, patriarchy, right? Like I think women are competitive because there's only ever been limited spots and we feel like we have to pull that other woman out of that table so we can have that spot.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that like I'm a female developer, right? Like so for many years I was involved in like a female dev community where like we didn't even really talk about like development work. We were just there to like talk to each other, and if somebody came in and like their boss was like being obviously sexist, like we were there to listen to them and be there and support. And so like I don't know, like I think one way is to start recognizing that there are gains to be had from developing a community of women. They may not be like financial. You might not be able to pay the bills with them, but they are like very, very real. They're substantial gains, right? Because you have a support network. You have people that are looking out for your back. Like I have a group of women that like if somebody tweets something and like it's an influencer being like, hey, tell me about your photography, like they will share that with the other women. And so all of them get that chance. And it's nobody has to be like on Twitter 24/7 trying to like find that one tweet. So I think, I don't know, I don't know what the easy answer is, right? Like, because we've been living that scarcity mindset for so long. It's hard, it's scary. It feels like easy to feel not seen and not heard and not cared for in certain situations. And so I would say like move into an abundance mindset, and that includes helping others, but also asking for help when you need it.
Yeah, that's an excellent answer, and you've made some really good points. Another thing that I found, and this goes exactly with what you just said about sharing with other women. I noticed that you've left, and if I get this wrong, please correct me, but I think it's like 30% of the money from your project is to empower other underrepresented groups and artists in the space. That's really amazing. And you're not didn't just put it on a website. You're out there actively doing it every single day, and people can see it. So I just wanted to commend you on that. I think it's really cool.
Thank you so much for noticing.
Oh. You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I do.
I don't want you to underplay that either, because it's so easy for us to talk about women in NFTs, and maybe somebody puts a charity in their roadmap, but the work doesn't stop there with that one-time gift. It has to go further. And what you're doing is actually embodying what needs to happen in this space by putting your money and your time and talent behind it. And that's a rarity here in this space.
Thank you. I know that I know how it feels to like feel like you just never get a break, and I see like so many talented, hardworking artists in this space just like grinding every day, and they're just not getting that break. They don't have that cultural capital. They don't to like do the things that it takes to like sometimes be successful, like um they're not willing to like bend the truth or like overemphasize. Like not that I'm saying like everybody who's successful does that, but like I think sometimes like integrity can be like a huge roadblock towards success. And I feel like there's a lot of people that they've been hurt by lack of integrity in institutional systems, and they take that very seriously, and then they don't get the notice that they really deserve for like the amount of work that they're putting in. And so it makes me happy that, like it's not a lot of money, but like it's something, right? Like it's something to spread out, and maybe they can like provide an opportunity for somebody else, or maybe they can use that money to like make a difference in their lives, and then, build their own collection and provide opportunities for others.
Yeah.
That's definitely paying it forward. We had a question in the chat from Channing. He wants to know, what would you recommend artists do in addition to starting a Discord and being active in various spaces?
Being active in spaces is great, right? Like that's definitely what you should be doing. Um, I'm gonna sound like such a hippy dippy, but like make friends. I'm serious. Like, don't just go into a space, tell people about your art, and like peace out. Like, stay, listen, and find somebody who's like you, who has like maybe the same sense of humor, or like the same kind of art style, or like way of looking at the world, and start to form friendships and like get those friends into a group DM. And it's like corporations do it all the time, like creative industries do it all the time. They put writers into a room and say like, hey, write the next episode of this show, like the premise is this. And it's kind of in that like creative like mind melding between different people that you really start to like figure out solutions and like effective ways of doing things. Not, I don't know if you're doing that or not, Channing. I'm so like, if you're doing that, I apologize for just giving you advice that you've already done. But yeah, also consider like your Twitter bio very carefully. Like, are your links easy to access? Like, is it easy to find your collection page? Is it easy to find your Discord? Um, assume that like a collector is only going to spend like 10 seconds looking at that page. And if you can't help them, like direct them to what they want, like you're going to lose them. Yeah, I hope that helps.
He said, thanks,
Um,
great advice.
so you mentioned earlier how we're in like a bit of a bull market right now. Not only that, I'm noticing a disturbing trend. I talk about it frequently, and I'm going to try to make a point to start talking about it more. And that is allow lists, and how we have found ourselves in this as a community, as the NFT community. We have found ourselves in this terrible hamster wheel of allow list cycle. So basically, you have a Discord. There's tens of thousands of people in it, mostly bots. It's all generic conversation. No real community is being built because there's 35,000 other people in there, and you have people coming in there all day saying, "Hi, how are you? Where are you from? What are you studying? What are you up
GM.
to?" Yeah, GM, yeah. And I've discovered something that is even more troubling to me, is that an entire industry or sector of work has popped up on Fiverr to help people make it through the allow list grind. So a lot of people don't have time to sit there all day. They don't want to sit there all day. So what they're now doing is there's a section for fan art. So you can pay someone to make fan art so you can enter the fan art competitions. But there's also a section for grinding for allow list. And the pay is disturbingly low, is probably the most polite way I could say it on a live stream. So I've been hearing lately that, that other people are feeling the same thing, or they're noticing the same thing. Like, this system is broken and we have to do something about it. Like, I'm angry with the people that are paying very low wages to people to sit and grind and allow lists, but I'm also upset with projects for creating this environment. How do we fix that? Because like with the raffles, you have wallet, they'll just multi-wallet. Dutch auction, it's just like the rich getting richer. People that are just getting started might not be able to put a bid in to buy like where the auction starts at 2 ETH or 1 ETH. And by the time it gets to what they can afford, it's already sold out. So like, what, do you have any ideas? I'm just going to start asking everyone, because the only way that we can find a solution is to talk about it.
So this is not my technical expertise, right? Like I think when I started in the space, like pre-sales, like you would like post a link in your Discord and hope that people didn't share it, and that was a pre-sale. And then the gas wars got really bad and people started doing the raffle like systems, and it's complicated. It's hard to like really figure out like what the perfect solution was, because everybody was hailing like a raffle as like a great solution for gas wars, which were originally what were pushing people out, like making mints inequitable. And so I don't know what the perfect answer is, honestly. Like I kind of feel like for me, like my answer is like collective bargaining. Like people should maybe just like not like uh, this isn't a great answer, but maybe don't mint the project, because most projects like their floors are going to fall below mint for a week or two because people like the whales are going to like mint a ton, right?
Mhm.
They're going to like grab the NFTs that are rare and they're going to hold on to those, and then they're going to like drop the floor, getting rid
Yeah.
of like all the others so they can get exit liquidity and go to the next project. And so like for me it's kind of like I just don't do the whitelist grind. Like just
Yeah.
wait, until after the project sells out. And like that's not the case for every project.
No, it's
Some are going to
absolutely
go,
not. You're right.
yeah, like some of them are going to go like straight away, but they're like I think it's Christina Flynn that said like, there has to be like an acceptance of missing out in this space.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. It's a tough,
That's
it's,
a very hard pill for people to swallow.
but
You're right.
I will say, I feel like the Divines and Rebel Society and my project and a bunch of others been, Ancient Warriors Empire, like there's all these projects that have been struggling to mint for a while. Um, and I trust them because like their creators and their teams continue to stay in the space, continue to show up, continue to engage. And I feel like the last time I saw a bull market, right? Like towards the end of it, it was just rug pull after rug pull after rug pull. Some of them by like people that were doxxed who had like legitimate careers as artists, but didn't maybe
Yeah.
know their developers that well. Um, and so like I feel like the whitelist question is almost like a question about like that culture in general of like you have to pile in on this project, you don't get to make it like an informed decision, like you don't get to like watch these people and like kind of feel them out for a few months. You're just trying to get in before anybody else does. It's Black Friday every freaking day.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not
Sometimes there are
sustainable.
projects like I think I heard you say it in another like a women in NFT space. Um they come out of nowhere. Like nowhere. You have last week they weren't around. This week they have 25,000 followers. Like what? How is that even
Exactly.
happening? And then that's what I consider a glaring warning sign to me, at least to me. You might want to stay away from this because something isn't adding up. Like something's not right, and that doesn't mean that every project that happens to that is the case. But a lot of projects that is the case with them. Um, I like what you say about like just focus on teams that show up every day and people that show up every day and are contributing to the space and they're building their project. And if their project doesn't sell out in 1 minute or 5 minutes after the sale goes live, they don't just. One time I participated in a project because I thought that the art was really cute and I'm still holding these. I don't really have a choice at this point, but that's okay. We all have projects like that. We all have them. I think it was called Lucky Parrots and it was a different animal. The drawing was cute. It had a thicker stroke line. It was just something that I was into. And the team seemed like they were good. Seemed like they were good, but they didn't believe in themselves. The project didn't sell out within like, and it was a smaller collection, maybe 3,000 pieces or so, similar size to yours. It didn't sell out right away. So instead of just being patient and let time do its thing, they decided, and the mint price was cheap, by the way. Affordable is what I should say. Like 0.3 or 0.4. It was nothing outrageous. They gave themselves about 5 hours and then they said, oh, well, we didn't sell out. So now everything is free. Like, how do you give up on yourself so quick? Like you put all this work into a project and you're just going to give up on yourself in 5 hours. So I tell everyone when people ask me, like, what is something you look for when considering a project? I look to find information about the creator. And if they're transparent and the art and if they seem what is the word I'm looking for? Committed isn't the right word, but if they seem like they enjoy what they do. My mind is just drawing a blank. I bet on people. I like to bet on people, and it hasn't let me down so far. I'm sure maybe at some point in time it will, but for now, it's proven true every single time.
I'm right there with you. I base my decisions on buying on the artist and also the art. And, you know, I do have like one or two things that like maybe they're not worth anything, but I like them.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's very valid, and I think that it's like a kind of like this ironic situation that we're in, that we're in this trustless system, but now trust is more important than ever. And we, in like, you know, a trust system, like a know your customer kind of like financial system, um, you don't really have to trust your retailer, right? Like there's the Better Business Bureau, there are refunds, there you can call your credit card company and like dispute a claim. That doesn't exist here. But the marketing from that world exists here. And
Mhm.
so I think that people they're just not used to like looking at things like how long has this Twitter account been around? Why do they have like so many followers, but they're not following anybody? Like, this isn't somebody that went around, introduced themselves in spaces, made friends. This is somebody who maybe, you know, maybe they're like a creator with like a lot of followers on like another account and they directed people to that Twitter, but it's worth investigating, right? Like that's the first thing that you should kind of be sussing out. Like, did they buy followers? And if they need to buy followers, like, are they really representing themselves like honestly, and representing like the demand for their supply honestly? Um, yeah, I'm right there with you, Ellie, though.
Yeah.
And you make a really
Um,
good point about how your groups like yours, the Divines, really, really did grow organically and took a while, but while they were, you know, waiting as they were minting, they didn't give up. They were consistently communicating what was happening. They were consistent in the space, and definitely like committed to their projects and what they were doing. And it was slow growth, but it was real.
Yes. Yeah. And like the communities are great for all those projects. It it's not just like I don't know. I was really stoked on Mechaverse myself. You know, I grew up with Gundams. Like I was like, yeah, I want a robot.
Mhm.
And yeah, the Discord was just like I was like, how am I supposed to talk to anybody? Like that, like
right.
what am I supposed to say? Like, hi, how are you? Like, what are you listening to? You don't.
Right.
There's not like a real human connection there. And so it's like it just doesn't feel like there's a solid foundation of a community to like survive a bear market, right? So I don't know. I'm right there with
Yeah.
you. Like I think organic slow growth is one of the most valuable things in this
But so
space.
underrated in the space as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, people have that mindset like Ali, if it doesn't sell out in like 1 hour, that the project is dead in the water, and nothing could really be further from the truth. But if you're out there listening, you know, and you see real women NFT led projects that you know have a plan, they're scalable, they're about you know a plan past mint, and they're growing a community, please support them before they start trending. That's like so important. It really is. And as Mido has said, be an evangelist for that NFT project. When you see her, her on Twitter, make sure you're following her, retweeting girls writing things, and you know, raving whenever you see those freaking celebrity posts. What NFT project should I buy next? Y'all know what to do.
Yeehaw.
I really, really appreciate you being here with us tonight and taking time out from I know what is a busy schedule. Congratulations to you on a wonderful project. We're so grateful to have you and people like you in this space. You're what's great about Web3.
Oh.
and I hope that you will continue on. What are your plans for the future? Are you going to be doing another project, or you have plans for just kind of growing what's happening now?
Um, I think I can speak about it. It's on our website. So we do have plans. We were thinking of another collection that included male and non-binary characters. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, I do want to try to grow the community and continue to provide value for holders. And I'm still figuring out the logistics of that. I've also been working as a developer, like voluntarily, because I'm a Genesis participating project with Exchange.io, which is going to be an up and coming decentralized NFT platform. So I'm hoping to share that with everybody soon.
Yeah, I hope you can come back on our show and talk about it.
Yeah, and Cory, Ali, thank you so much for inviting me to your show. It has been so much fun. It's like a delight. And yeah, thank you for giving me the time and the space. I super appreciate you.
Loving
Thank
you.
you.
Everybody follow her on Twitter. I'm going to post her Twitter page up here again. Not only follow her on Twitter, make sure you get in her Discord and communicate and support her for now. If you haven't already, go on OpenSea, get yourself a girls writing things, get a cute one like I got. And make sure you support any other projects that she has going forward, because we need to support people like Mido in this space. It's desperately needed, you guys. Until next time, we will be back tomorrow night for another episode of Around the Clock. Thank you for being here. On your way out, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're here Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Smooches.
Bye, guys.